So thank you everybody for joining us today. This is an orientation for the Year 1 Interprofessional Education activity that's taking place next Friday on January 26th. There is a facilitator package, which rather than email so that you can find it, it will be attached to the Outlook calendar invitation. There was a draft version that was saved to the invitation today. It was next to final. The final version will be sent to you via your Outlook calendar invitation for the actual event on January 26th. We thought that way people don't have to look through their emails. They'll be able to find it just right in their calendar. So we would like to acknowledge the traditional territories in which we find ourselves, acknowledging that as educators, as Manitobans, as Canadians, as individuals who share this land and water and air, how grateful we are to the peoples who've looked after this space since time immemorial. And we are so grateful to be able to meet in this space and to acknowledge that we're all partners, particularly in collaboration when we're talking about how we collaborate with one another. And today's topic is very much about collaborating with patients and families, being part of the team, and from an Indigenous worldview, including the community as part of that conversation. Next slide. So interprofessional education in the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences has been taking place for a few decades now in various iterations. The current iteration that's in place has been around since 2016, since the formulation of the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences, where we have our 5 colleges of dentistry and dental hygiene, medicine and the physician assistant program, nursing, midwifery, pharmacy, and rehab sciences, which includes OT, PT, and RT. So how this has developed over time is a testament to all the hard work and volunteerism of all kinds of folks in faculty and staff across the Rady faculty. One thing that has never changed is since we've had the Canadian Interprofessional Health Collaborative Framework for Interprofessional Collaboration that was first published in 2010, we ground our education very much in the competency domains that are within that framework. Some of you might be familiar with the framework. It's here. The competency domains are listed on the left-hand side of the slide. Do please be aware that this framework is undergoing a revision. It began in 2023 and it should be released in 2024. It will be very similar. Some of the nomenclature is changing, but some of the very same messages around how we need to work to the best of our ability and function as a team. Next slide. So the learning objectives for January 26th are listed on this slide. And really, the first part of the learning objectives is really the context in which we're providing or trying to achieve our learning objectives. It's really while discussing the person or the family's lived experiences. We hope that the learners will be able to focus on the expressed needs and lived experiences of the patient, client, family, and our community. Integrate team members' viewpoints, soliciting input from members to gain a shared understanding and ensure a common understanding of team decisions. And consider the team's ability to uphold goals, expectations, and processes for team functioning. And we think the activities that we have planned for January 26th will do a good job of achieving those learning objectives. The agenda is on the slide here. We're building a lot of this activity this time on this patient perspective, the patient viewpoint, and it's being grounded initially in a poem that we've shared with you. And so within the poem, there's very much a theme about, do you see me from a patient's perspective? Do you see me individually and collectively as a team? So the agenda, it will start with a welcome. The activities are around person and family centeredness, team communication, team functioning, and we'll be hearing from a person and or a family member about a lived experience of working with a team within the healthcare system. And there'll be lots of opportunity for debrief along the way, which is where you come in as facilitators. Next slide. We are going to be taking attendance. The programs have mandatory attendance. We will be doing it. You won't be in charge of taking any attendance. There will be a SurveyMonkey poll at the end of the session where students will be able to do that. So this was really what we did with the same group of learners back in the fall. We thought it would be important for you to know where they're coming from. These are year 1 students who've only done one activity together back in September. We've kept the teams together as best as we can. They have not had any communication since September, so they don't know each other very well. They may remember each other's faces or names if we're lucky, But back in September, we had 3 activities that are listed on the slide here. We very much focused on team communication. We did a reverse TRIZ exercise, if you're familiar with that. The student groups had to imagine the worst team ever. They watched a video of a fictional team rounds, and then they did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a fictional team that they saw in the video. And we very much emphasize that people need us and they expect us to collaborate together as healthcare providers or as social care providers. Next slide. So we need to collaborate. The literature is strong that we need to do this, that there is the expectation. From the Institute of Health Improvement from the United States, they came out with their triple aim in 2007. They're listed in the figure here. And it expanded in 2014 to include clinician well-being. And under clinician well-being is the sense of recruitment and retention and making sure that we look after each other's well-being as members of a team, and why collaboration is so important. More recently, it's expanded to the quintuple aim in 2021 that acknowledged that health equity is just as important in trying to improve our health systems so that we can move towards better health for all and an improved economy. So this is really a global call to all of us to work together to collaborate towards better health for population health. So next Friday, on January 26th, we will be doing all of this in a Zoom platform. However, we're going to have 2 simultaneous Zoom meetings. We will have teams that we have pre-constructed interprofessionally. Teams 1 to 21 will be in the first meeting, and teams 22 to 42 will be in the next meeting. We have 2 OIPC facilitators who will guide us through the presentations through the afternoon. And Catherine Plouffe is the Zoom host in the one meeting. I'll be the Zoom host in the other. The information that's on this slide, you don't need to write this down. This is in your facilitator guide, including emergency contacts. If you need to text us half an hour before because something awful happened and you can't attend, we need to know because we have everything exactly oriented and organized for the afternoon. So if you need to reach us, you've got our our cell numbers for emergencies is provided in the facilitator guide. And this is the agenda for the afternoon, and I'm passing it over to Laura now.
There we are. Hello. So just so you know where we are in terms of the agenda, if this was on January 26th, we're going to move into break the time period 3:10 to 3:20. So, and then I'll speak about what's going to happen in that breakout room, where you will be the facilitator in that room, and then I'll give a little bit of the knowledge burst or the mini lecture, and then I think it's Michelle who's going to talk about activity 2 as we move forward. So we'll keep repopulating this slide so you can sort of see where we are in the time period on January 26th. So next slide. So this first activity is really meant to be the icebreaker activity when they're bringing the students back into their teams. So they'll be in a breakout room with their team. And we gave them the poem, so they should have read it beforehand. We hope they have. This never necessarily happens, but this is the point about rereading the poem together. Now, whether you reread the whole poem or the team decides to read part of the poem, but it's about reacquainting themselves with each other and as well listening to what the poet is saying to themselves individually and then to them collectively as a team. Really about exploring, listening, soliciting, integrating team members' thoughts, ideas, attitudes, and trying to gain that shared understanding of who are the people in their team. And so we can maybe just practice this here. If we want to just practice this here. So thank you for advancing the slide. So the poem, even the first stanza. I always wonder, do you as my healthcare providers see me individually as a team? I do not mean literally see me through your eyes. I mean, do you see and understand the whole me, the person that I am? The me, not through my signs and symptoms, blood values, or my condition, but the me as a mother, wife, nurse, professor, a global citizen. So in this time period, which was only be about 10 minutes or so, what do you as a healthcare provider in training see in this poem? What is this poem speaking to you? So we'll just sort of open that up to everyone. Anybody?
I will mention that the complete poem was attached to your calendar invitation for today's orientation, if you had a chance to look at it, or feel free to open it and take a look at it while we go.
What does it mean to you?
When you just read it to us, Laura, it's just, do you see me as a human being?
Mm-hmm.
Mind.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's just a great reminder of the complexity of each individual that anybody encounters in any kind of encounter, whether that's a personal encounter or a professional encounter. Lots of great questions. It's quite long, so I'm not sure that we would read it. As you said, it's going out ahead of time, but yeah, I think there's some really strong stanzas that might be helpful to highlight.
So as a facilitator, if you find silence in the room, then you could either read from the poem itself, a stanza, just to bring it to the forefront of the learners. As a way, again, this is meant to really start to get them to feel about the caring aspect of being a health professional, the compassionate aspect, individually and then collectively as well. So that's the first activity, meant for an icebreaker. Next slide here. So the actual icebreaker, after the icebreaker takes place, so moving into a knowledge burst. Next slide. So this will be a mini lecture. So we try to have it also interactive because there's going to be a large number of students in the rooms. So we start off with the term tella. Tella. In the chat, share words with the prefix tella. So go ahead and do that. Any word that you know that has the word tella in it. Telerehab, telephone, telemetry, television, and on it goes, right? On and it goes. And so the idea, if you click, Michelle, the idea is that tele is all about distance. So it's the delivery in telehealth, it's the delivery of healthcare services where patients and providers are separated by distance. And it uses the information communication technology for the exchange of information for diagnosis, treatment of disease, injury, research, evaluation, continuing education, etc. World Health Organization definition of telehealth. So tele meaning covering distance. Separated by distance, exchange of information, health, in this case, not merely the absence of disease or disease, right? So health in its fullest context. Next slide. So we want in the activity for the students to think about that person-patient centeredness, hence the poem. The poem is so rich, right? And the patient as central to our healthcare provider team. It's really sometimes challenging because we can get into that space where we think, oh yes, and plus the patient, right? So we really need to include the patient as an equal member of our team and central to the team. So Medariski has done some work in this area around patient partners and seeking to understand that. And some of the key areas is around the communication, right, as a key. And she's looked at, it's an interesting model, and you certainly can have a look at it yourself, but the key communication here is what can we do as a facilitator, and what we do that maybe is a disruptor to that communication with the patient as your partner in care. So a facilitator, stuff on the positive here, what was your role in the healthcare experience is something you might ask the patient or the family member. Whereas saying you complain a lot about your healthcare providers, what do you do to help yourself, is a disruptor, right? It's not open, inclusive. It's more like a victimization. So we would focus our learners, and when we think about this, about those more facilitator top comments that really promote person-centeredness versus ones that are disruptive. So when we move the students into the activities coming forward, we want them to get into that headspace in a telehealth or virtual headspace with the patient person as central to the conversation. Hence, we have invited family advisors who have lived experience with healthcare by the time we get to activity number 3. So really trying to position them to understand that role. Next slide. And I think that I turn this over to you, Michelle.
Yeah. Thank you. So as you can see on the agenda here, we've been back and forth with the main room and the breakout room. So we've had our first breakout room with the icebreaker. And then we had a little mini knowledge burst that Laura just went through. And then now we're going to be going into our second of 3 breakout rooms. So this is our second activity. So again, we want to keep re-engaging our students and bringing them back to the poem. So this here, I wonder, do you see me? You each act like you listen, genuinely care for me. But when interactions last mere minutes, how can you get to know the whole me? For there are unspoken aspects of me that you often do not get to hear in your individual and collective discovery. This is also from the poem Matursky 2022. So in a telehealth space, we need to remind the students to be fully present and be aware of nonverbal enhancers, and it's about expressing the care that we are providing to the patient and family advisors. Right. So this is the description of the second activity. So again, do you see me? These are a couple of the questions we want to engage with our students in the second breakout room. So the first question we want the students to think about and talk about is, how does the poem guide us to be caring, competent healthcare providers, even in a telehealth virtual space, both individually and collectively, so collaboratively? The second question that we want our students to engage with one another is, how could we enhance the quality of our engagement with the patient and or family in a telehealth virtual space? So some of the students may not have ever experienced or know what this may look like. So as facilitators, you may need to provide the students with an example of when the team may collectively be meeting with a patient. So an example of this would be for a family conference. We want to remind the students that a virtual environment includes both telephone as well as video conferencing. And we want them to think about what the impact that the platform has on the engagement with the patient or clients. And then ideally, we would like the students to think about both positive and negative influences of the virtual platforms. So we will move to the breakout room. This second activity breakout room is 15 minutes to go through these questions. And then we will, after this is finished, we will come back to the main room for a debrief. We will provide some tips and insights for the of telehealth here. We have all of the family, patient, caregivers, everybody in the center here. And then we want to remind the students of some insights to think about when they're interacting with the patient and or family advisor. So it's okay to accept silence once in a while. We want the students to be fully present. So if you notice that some students don't have their camera on, just reminding people, if they are able to, there's several reasons why students may not be able to put their camera on, but if you are able to put their camera on, that would be preferred. Also using nonverbal cues, so making sure that they're trying to make eye contact with this virtual encounter, dress professionally, display their name, unclutter the background or blur it, and having a notepad for documentation handy. So we have a little kind of fun video that we wanted to ask all of you about if you think this is something that would be worth including in the activity. It's a video conference call in real life. It's kind of funny. We recognize that it is not a very culturally diverse video, but we wanted to get some feedback today if you think that we should share it. So I'll just flip sharing my screen and show you the video.
This is, of course, providing that we're running on time.
Yes.
Alternatively, we drop it completely, or alternatively, we can give the video link to the learners to look at in advance. It's about 4 minutes, so.
All right, everybody can see my screen. I'll play the video.
Trip Crosby
has joined the meeting. Beth has joined the meeting.
Hello?
Tyler?
No, this is Beth from ICS.
Oh, hey, Beth. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah. Just making it, you know.
Tyler?
Has joined the meeting.
All right, well, this is Trip. Who's here?
Tyler's here.
Beth's here.
Okay, the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the...
Yeah, I'll be able to do it in like 30 minutes. John?
Has joined the meeting.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I was just trying to go over the purpose of today's meeting, which is to discuss the
Tyler?
Has joined the meeting.
Sorry, guys, I got cut off. Is Paul here? Send him the invite.
Put in your access code.
No, that's your PIN number.
It should be a 9-digit number.
Try pressing the pound key. Paul.
Has joined the meeting.
Any questions before we move on?
Yes, this is Beth. What's our best plan of attack for the second quarter?
I
Question
think what
actually...
we should do.
Oh,
Go ahead. Oh, I think
Well,
what we should do
it
is
actually
really
depends on
diversify.
how you look at it, 'cause
and
the
really
re-
come.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I think what
Given
we-
sales,
what we
we're at a...
really- I think
Let me just say that...
Okay.
That's a great graph, John. Tyler?
Well, my main concern with the projections from last year was that they're just insufficient. I mean, they're not even taking into account.
Did we lose Tyler again?
Hello?
John, are you guys taking distributions? John?
Oh, my bad. I was on mute. Let me start over.
So I've prepared a presentation. I'm sharing it with all of you. You should be able to see it on your screen right now.
Got it.
I don't see a link anywhere.
It says I need to download a plugin.
We are all using Macs, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How can you?
Financials are looking great. Paul, do you have any comments on staffing?
I was thinking about that because we get a few more contractor types in. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Rex, get down!
I don't know. I feel like when I looked at the numbers last quarter, yeah, you couldn't really tell a huge difference. So if we were to really tighten that up, then I don't
To me, staffing is a huge
What is
impact.
that?
Is that me? Is that me?
It's not me. I don't think.
I just want to go over a couple of details as we move into our next section here. We got 3 new departments coming on board.
I'm breaking up a little bit, guys.
By the end of Q3.
Driving to
So
a dead
I need
spot.
everyone to give me detailed evaluations each
Sorry,
month
guys.
so that we know. That's it, guys. Beth, you'll send out a recap email that could have basically taken the place of this whole meeting, correct?
Yep, always do.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, Beth. Dave, you been here the whole time? Yeah. Huh. Well, thanks everyone once again. Oh, one more. Hey, Trip.
So yeah, we would love your feedback on that. It's something lighthearted, not a lot of diversity. We know that sometimes humor can fall flat though, which is why we're kind of, do we show it? Do we not show it? Do we have it as a preview? Do we not? Do people mind giving us feedback what they think? Saint makes a good point in the chat. It's a packed agenda. Do we have enough time? And that's our one concern about, do we have time? 4 minutes is, I mean, it wasn't quite 4 minutes because there was some add-on there, but even 3 minutes, do we have time for that? Or we could give it to them in advance. Callie?
I was the person talking on mute. I like it. I'm curious. I think it all resonated for us as faculty and folks around because we've all been in those meetings. Has this cohort been on a lot of Zoom calls that they would connect with it, or would it resonate as much with them is my only thought too.
That's a good point. Some of the learners, are there any learners who haven't had a year of university in a virtual environment? Possibly. Because some of the programs accept students pretty early. Christy?
I think it was good to include because it not only for like the telehealth patient perspective, but actually for like integrating into these type of events. Because I know even last year when I was first in it, I was new to the university, but I was just shocked by the number of students who I had students who didn't put on their cameras didn't involve, and I think this really gets that point across, and I think it's valuable to make the 4 minutes. Just my perspective. I mean, I was dying laughing, they might not, but I think that piece of if they have interprofessional activities or other things going forward on Zoom, I think it gets some good points across about being present.
And we do know historically that when we require students or request students to watch something in advance, we don't know, we're not very confident that that actually gets done. If we think it's important, then we should actually show it and make the time. But is it a message that we need to send across? Laura, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing as well. I think it's very funny. I thought there was, I mean, maybe it's towards the end, maybe it comes back, he stands up and he walks away with his underwear on. But maybe that's a different video that I'm thinking
Well, maybe
of.
I cut it off too soon.
No, I can't remember.
Okay.
We watched several, so maybe it was, but so that's good because I was concerned about that. But
you know,
Dana,
yeah.
I was going to say Dana left a good comment to patient care, and now saying can totally apply to patient care context. If we show the video, then we probably need to make sure that we articulate that link.
Yes.
Right. About this is relevant to any communication, whether they're doing group work in their program as groups of learners, whether they're doing a family conference online with a family. And this is trying to help us also set the stage right before we actually have patient and family representatives come speaking to the students. So
yes, we are spending this first hour using the poem, talking about telehealth, being in this space, and it really is about being present, them being present. And I think that when we watched it this time together here, I thought, it's clear to me, and I made the assumption that everybody would get the fact is that they are pretending that they're on a Zoom meeting. They're actually not physically present.
So I hear that if there were time, it is something that might be beneficial, that if we don't have time, if we're running short of time, we drop it. But if we do show it, then we need to make the connection. And we do know from, pedagogical approaches, it is something, it's a little bit fun, and it gives something, I don't know, it breaks up the lecture part, if you will, too. So Kelly?
Sorry, just a thought, and I don't want to disrupt the whole agenda, but because it is so funny and it might start a conversation, might this be a good icebreaker as well? I don't want to readjust the whole agenda on your behalf, but it was just a passing thought.
That is very interesting, Kelly. That's actually, yes, in hindsight, that would have been a really interesting idea. I'm not sure. Oh, Christy's thinking the same thing. It would mean a little bit of a reboot on our part. We can take that under advisement and we can talk as a group and see. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what my colleagues feel like from the OIPC.
Yeah, now that I've watched it again fully, I feel like, I mean, it's 3.5 minutes that maybe I think that we might be able to prioritize to include it. I think it's fun for the students, and it could give them a different perspective if they haven't experienced those type of Zoom meetings, and then moving forward in their careers, that would make sense to them too if they have future.
We did
I really, yeah.
We just did with it.
No, I really like it that I rewatched it again for another time.
And we did have some conversation about that as a potential icebreaker way back in the fall, but I think we were just sort of more trying to move the students forward with the poem as our, that deep
anchor.
Understanding. And then we kept on building on, first of all, just the poem, some key words in the icebreaker, and then moving into that telehealth space to really simulate and get them to the idea you are going to be meeting a family member in the second hour, and you need to be attending and be, you're on, your camera's on, not playing solitaire on the side or doing an assignment. Mark.
I agree with Kelly. I think it's a great icebreaker. It is only 4 minutes. People are going to be joining in. Probably some will be a bit late anyway, so it's a bit of a cushion up front. And it just sets a kind of a positive tone for Friday afternoon. And so 4 minutes plus a few minutes for context, and then into the more serious stuff. But totally relevant. Really good. Laughed a lot.
Mm-hmm. Anne?
I actually really like the video. I think it is a good topic for the break the ice, let people know each other. Telehealth gonna be the future. I think we're not gonna get away with the telehealth. So I think it's important to show the student the rules. You can see people interact each other without letting other people finish their conversation. When I did the facilitator last year, I probably didn't do a good job. I didn't set up the rule in the Zoom meeting, who can talk first, who the second, who the third one. So I think perhaps we should bring the video on the front line on the first year students, let them know you come to a Zoom meeting, you come to a Zoom discussion, what's the tips, what the rules, and then we can moving forward. Just my
Well,
thought.
I personally don't think it's a whole.
It's the second year. This is the first year students.
First year students, yeah. I personally don't think it's a whole lot of work on our part. We asked you the question, you gave us some feedback. I mean, I think we could make it work. We'd put it up front.
If we do that, then we might not re-record this, but you'll follow the facilitator guide.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Good. And then as part of this debrief here in the chat, we'll get the teams to share their insights to generate some conversation. I think we're going back to the agenda, and I'm passing it over to Laura or Moni.
It's me. And now, just like in the video, my dog's barking in the background. I won't be teaching from my home with the dog in the background. So now we're moving on to oh, you can't hear it, Kelly. I'm glad to hear that. Minka Chan actually taught me once how to turn off my background noise in Zoom. So that's very helpful. So activity number 3, which is the part that we're really most excited about. Shared Health has a pool of patient family advisors. They are individuals who have experience with the healthcare system and are prepared to share their stories with students and others who will listen. So we have arranged for a number of them to come and talk to our students. And so that's what I'm gonna introduce you to now, what this activity 3 looks like. So they come from Shared Health. They are provided the support, the pre-briefing and the debriefing by their coordinator in the Shared Health program. And this program refers to them as person and family advisors. Next slide. So before we go into breakout rooms for activity number 3, Matursky, who's done a lot of work around this, I feel like we need to introduce Matursky. Katerina Matursky is a nurse, PhD, educator, researcher from Ontario, and her PhD was all around the patient voice as part of the team. So she has been very prolific in all of this. So in one of her publications, she provides a framework on patient roles on interprofessional teams in primary care, where she really focuses in on the patient role as a self-care manager and as a co-decision maker. And for that to happen, we need to make sure that we build relationships, that we collaborate, we identify, explain what these processes look like. But the conditions in the top of the siphon that are necessary for this to happen is we need to be flexible as teams, we need to be ready, and we need to make the time for patients really to be part of the team. Next slide. And so before we move into our breakout rooms, we're very fortunate that we have these persons and family members and or patients who are sharing their story with us. Do remember that these are real people. These are not actors. These are people with real experiences, real stories. And what you hear in your breakout room should stay in your breakout room. Take away the lesson, but leave the person's story. They are sharing it with us, but that's not necessarily under the proviso that we share their stories and their confidential musings to anybody who will listen. So let's make sure that we keep, just like we follow FIA and FIPA, maintain privacy and confidentiality of the individuals who choose to share their stories with us, particularly if they mention names. They're encouraged not to mention names. So for this part, we do not have a patient family advisor for each of the 39 teams 42 teams that are participating. We have 10 in total, which is partly why we have 2 different Zoom meetings. For this breakout activity, we're going to re-amalgamate. We're going to put teams together into new breakout rooms based on letters, A to E. Each Zoom meeting will have 5 breakout rooms lettered A to E with one person who comes to share their story. Following the opportunity for them to tell their story, they've been advised they have 15 minutes to tell their story, and then there's an opportunity for engagement with the person sharing their story. We'll call it question and answer, but it's an opportunity for a back and forth. Now, there's about 3 facilitators for each of these lettered breakout rooms, so you're actually co-facilitating. So we didn't have the expectation for you to reach out to one another in advance. However, you do know who you are. It's all listed in the facilitator guide. But I think you need to use your best co-facilitation, spontaneous skills here. You can wing it. That's my plan. Just wing it with the co-facilitators to move the conversation along, to thank the individual who shared their story, and then to ask them questions. Next slide. So then there's going to be the patient advisor. They've told their story for 15 minutes. There's off the top of my head, is it 20 minutes of question and answer, maybe 25 minutes. We will send you prompts in the breakout rooms as you go. And then there'll be an opportunity for you to debrief without the person there sharing their story. In case it triggered to some of the individuals, we needed to make sure that there's a space for you to debrief with the learners as well. It's the questions that we're suggesting that you ask are: share a thought posed by someone that made you think, identify assumptions you have moving forward in a collaborative spirit, propose one value-added perspective gained from today's collaboration. And bringing it back to the poem, I wonder, do you see me? Do you see me when I'm a patient? Do you see me when I'm a healthcare professional colleague? Now, these are guides. You can ad-lib. You all are experienced facilitators. You're experienced educators. You have your own lived experiences. We are providing you with the debrief questions, but if you can't get through all of them, that's absolutely fine. If something happens in the question, in the dialogue, in the shared story that we don't anticipate, you might not use any of these. You might need to debrief separately. But you all have experience at this. That's why partly we have you co-facilitating for this section. You might have to wing it a little bit depending on the story that you hear. In your facilitator guide, you will see which patient family advisors have been linked into which breakout room. You'll see which breakout room you're assigned to. And then at the back of the facilitator guide is an appendix that shares a little description of what story will be shared so that you have an idea in advance. You will only hear one story from one advisor, but if you want to be able to wrap your head around it in advance to know what you're going to hear about, that's in your facilitator guide. So we met with them last week. They're all very keen. They all have a story to share. How that unfolds over a 15-minute period, we can't predict exactly, but the advisors have been advised what we're looking for in terms of our learning objectives and how we wish them to share a story. So this debrief will take place in that final activity number 3. Mm-hmm. And then we're moving back into the large room. And Laura, I'm going to pass it back to you now.
Mm-hmm. So we met with the family advisors with Shared Health last week, and pretty much showed them exactly what we're showing you, sort of the flow. They know that they've also got the poem. So we said that if they wanted to, they can use the poem to draw points forward in their own lived experiences. And so they're primed and ready as well. And so we thought it was a very good idea for them to share, and that's what Moni had mentioned is in our facility guide. So you can have an anticipation of what they will maybe talk about. In the end, through the 3 activities, the little mini lecture points that the students will have begun this, continued on in this journey around understanding roles and responsibilities in terms of being an interprofessional collaborative practitioner, with that focus on the patient, the client, family, lived experience, and their expressed needs, both through the poem and through our family advisors sharing their stories. And, that value of the telehealth, being present with each other in this virtual space to explore people's viewpoints, gain understanding, and move towards that common understanding around team decisions. Within the end, considering their future goals as a team, an interprofessional collaborative team, really focusing in on team functioning and team communication. So next slide. Just a reminder, we've gone through quite a bit, that there are 2 Zoom rooms. One will be hosted by Catherine and myself, and the other one by Moni. So you'll be split up into 2 different Zoom rooms. You only have to attend that Zoom big room. And then within that time period, we'll break into small breakout rooms. The first hour will be team specific. They'll be in their own teams. The second hour, based on the number of family advisors we had to bring teams together. So that first hour really is about reacquainting with yourself with this team. So when you go into the second breakout room, which is going to have 6 teams in it, at least they know somebody in the team. And then our cell phones there. We will have the students do an attendance check-in. We have a QR code for that, as well as a survey based on it to evaluate the whole session. So we get some feedback on that. So Moni, maybe we'll make sure we include in that survey the use of the video, if we can add that at this time. And then afterwards, from 5 to 5:30, an optional facilitator debrief. So you'll just stay in the Zoom room with Moni, or if you're in the Zoom room with myself, and I think Vladan, Moni and Michelle in one room, Vladan, myself, and Catherine in the other room. And we'll just offer you a debrief, gain your insights. That's our session. We're so excited. We're really thrilled. We're hoping it's going to really work. Any questions? And Moni,